Welcome back to the AME Food Safety Show. The next topic particularly infuriates me, and I'm not lying to you. I am absolutely irate about the way companies treat consumers. This next segment is about understanding food labels. Are we on with the show? Awesome. Let's look at this cartoon. It is reminiscent of everyone who is reading and understanding what they're bringing home to their families or what they're personally consuming. What is the challenge? The challenge is understanding food labels. Let's talk about that for a while. As you look at that cartoon, you see the frustration on the side of the consumer. And the idea is, what are they telling us? What are these companies telling us? What I see in my experience as a food auditor and a food chemist and a food analyzer for bacterial pathogens and other contaminants such as chemicals, we're looking at complete deception in some cases. They say, oh, well, we comply with the minimal government requirements. That's great. And some labels are absolute deceptions in the sense that they are trying to instill confidence in the consumer in their products. And that particular cartoon is particularly indicative of the issues that we have to face. Chemical, heart disease relates to that. You're looking at salt content, diabetes, and cancer-inducing organisms and chemicals. Next slide, please. What we see in this particular graphic is something that's known as corruption at the very highest levels on the issue of genetically modified organisms. And as most people that were aware who were voting, a very small percentage of us, by the way, realize that the industry spent millions, hundreds of millions, to convince us that having a label that says genetically modified organisms was bad for us. People consume food. Some of the food has been modified to incorporate the genetic material of different types of animals and plants to get different benefits. Here's the challenge. Particularly corn is looked at because we use a lot of the chemistry from that organism, and it has been modified so they can use certain chemicals without harming the product. Some of those chemicals don't go away, and they're very similar to a chemical that Monsanto is the company produced for the Vietnam War. They were called defoliants. They removed the green material away from the jungle so they could find the bad guys. Here's the issue. The government, as we know as the FDA, has Monsanto employees appointed and hired to protect their interests. They even passed a law, which everyone who voted for Obama should get off the chair and cheer, to protect, it was called H.R. 93, to protect Monsanto so they couldn't be sued on genetically modified organisms for any damages that they might cause, and to protect all their patents for an extended period of time beyond what we normally get. And what's particularly interesting to me is that a former Monsanto attorney was appointed to the Supreme Court. And so any case that comes up, they're protected. This is what I call an unfair advantage, and it leads toward corporations dictating to us what we should eat and how we should live. Next slide. What we're looking at here is an attempt to label products as either, and it's very didactic, it's either there or it's not there. So when you look at a product, if it were labeled, you could properly make the decision, an informed decision, to purchase genetically modified organisms or not. Is that unfair to ask companies that produce food to offer informed choices to consumers? I leave that with you every time you go to the store. Next slide. This is a particularly interesting labeling briefing for you. When you look at the labels, they are particularly designed not to tell you anything. It tells you a little bit about sodium if you're interested, if you're a diabetic. It does tell you about some of the values, but some of the other items, they add chemically. What I found particularly interesting is this label on the right. It's for macaroni cheese, and if you can't read it, but I'll read it to you. This product may have adverse effect on activity and attention in children. What does that tell you? So that is what I call full and fair disclosure. Maybe some of those studies can't be validated. Let's go to the next slide. This is the position a consumer is placed in, the challenging reading of labels. You'd have to have pretty much an advanced degree in a food-related area to understand many of these chemicals. But what I would advocate you look for are products that openly and honestly disclose contain genetically modified soybean oil. Soybean is used in a lot of food products that we consume, particularly those that are shelf stable. Next slide. What do labels tell us? You think about it for a minute. Many of these are market-induced rather than scientifically accurate. USDA organic standards, and organic by USDA is a complete range of requirements. Low carb, whole grain, fresh, cholesterol-free, even 100% natural. What does natural mean? Well, those are market-designated standards, which are audited frequently, usually within a year of production, and then that is used as a motivation for you as a consumer to purchase. Next slide. Does it really tell you that much when it says homegrown? What does that mean? How about gluten-free? That may be helpful. We do DNA testing for gluten-free, if that's an issue for you. Organic is an issue. Usually means doesn't apply chemicals. And how about treated by radiation? How does that make you feel? That product has been treated by a radiation. So the challenge for me and you is to look for products which fit within your biological spectrum. Next slide. So, as I conclude this section on genetically modified organisms, I would have to say that as an informed consumer, you should be very concerned. You should be concerned about a specific list, and you can look it up on the internet, of all organisms which are genetically modified. I actually gave a lecture in University of Puerto Rico Medical School, and they have the technology to change tobacco that people smoke to make it smell like strawberries because they inject strawberry DNA. And we're only getting some of it. As markets develop, we'll get more and more of these. Thank you very much. Let's move on to the next segment.